Greetings everyone, I'm Professor Milind Kunchur and welcome to the High-End Audio Explained podcast. As Mark Twain said, what gets us in trouble is not what we don't know, it's what we think we know that actually isn't so. Misinformation. And I can't think of any field that's as filled with misinformation and controversy as audio, especially high-end audio. The trouble starts with a misunderstanding of what musical sounds really are, how they're perceived by our ears and the brain, and what it is about them that makes them so challenging to reproduce. These are seemingly straightforward questions, and you'd think that by now most people with an interest in audio would have a solid basic understanding of these topics, but unfortunately that's often not the case. The common understanding of these topics is quite frequently just flat wrong. Often when describing sound, people often use terms like clean, neutral, linear, etc. without really understanding what these terms mean. In scientific vocabulary, you rarely have synonyms, so different words mean different things. And to make matters worse, there are some YouTube channels out there, one in particular, that actively promotes misinformation and pseudoscience, and I'll do a full episode on that at a later time. A good scientist should always have the humility to understand the limitations of their understanding and their measurements. Scientific understanding of a subject, any subject, is never complete and final. It's always evolving. In this podcast, I hope to provide the complete and correct science as it stands, and also help to define the limits of our understanding, because there are some things which are really not understood and are still open questions. All these claims that I'm making, of course, beg the question, who am I and why should you listen to me? So I feel I need to say a few words about my background and my qualifications. So I'll be providing a rather different angle on this subject. So rather than reviewing equipment and making recommendations, I'll be discussing the rigorous science behind high-end audio. My research lies at the intersection of several fields that I've been studying for over 15 years, and I've actually personally spoken at conferences and departments of each of these fields on separate occasions. So without having taken the time to study each of these fields in the detail that I have, it would have been impossible to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. So in a nutshell, you can think of my research as lying at the intersection of audio and various aspects of human hearing, and note that this is formal research done under rigorous academic standards and published in peer-reviewed journals. When I do listening tests, it's not the same as inviting some friends over for an afternoon of comparative listening. I had to take 8 course modules and exam just to be qualified to do experiments on human subjects. This was followed by an IRB proposal, consent forms, etc. And IRB is an institutional review board and ethics committee. So it's a very long process to carry out formal double-blind listening tests. Similarly, when I carry out electrical measurements, I'm not just using off-the-shelf instrumentation and copying what everyone else is doing. I take a fundamental first principles approach and develop instrumentation from scratch that has set world records. For example, I spent over 6 months developing a spectrum analyzer system that beats the ear's sensitivity, something that's very hard to do. So I have over 100 publications, and my work has been published in journals of the Audio Engineering Society, the European Acoustics Association, etc. And all of my relevant publications can be downloaded from my website for free. In addition to publications, I've given over 150 keynote and invited talks at various venues, and I've organized workshops and panels for various organizations, including multiple times at conventions of the Audio Engineering Society. So here are some examples of Audio Engineering Society panels. I want to note that our panels have included presidents and other officers from the Audio Engineering Society. At the recent AES convention in Madrid, Spain, our team received 3 hours of speaking time at a 3-day highly selective international convention. So the work I'll talk about in this podcast is at the very forefront of research in audio. In addition to those research conventions, I've also spoken to consumers and manufacturers at trade shows and expositions. for example, at the annual Expona event in Chicago. And last but not least, I developed a full semester university course on this subject that covers audio, acoustics, the biology of hearing, musical scales, etc. As you can see, this course has won multiple awards, ranging from the Governor's South Carolina Professor of the Year to a Carnegie Foundation U.S. Professors of the Year award. So research and education in audio is what I do for a living, and this is the expertise and the background that I'll be bringing to the table. So in this podcast, along with explaining things and sharing information with you, I hope to include interactive Q&A sessions from time to time. So in these, I can learn from you and also incorporate diverse points of view into the discussion. So here's a tentative list of upcoming topics. So a lot of the confusion surrounding audio arises from a fundamental misunderstanding of the relationships between frequency, time, and phase. Also, people misunderstand the nature of musical sounds and the ingredients of timbre, the tonal quality of sound. Next, the majority of folks seem to have an overly simplistic understanding of the human auditory system. They underappreciate what our ears and brain can do. As a result, people often apply incomplete and incorrect science in their attempt to understand high-end audio. So it's no surprise that there is so much controversy and dispute. The purpose of this podcast is to help resolve this situation. Anyway, I'm excited to start this journey with you. And while I'm in the process of creating and posting new episodes, please do visit my website. So there you can find more information about me and my work, and also you can download articles and audio for free. So I want to conclude this first episode with a rather cool audiovisual demonstration that illustrates the complexity of our senses. Now, each sense is complicated on its own, but interesting effects arise when senses clash together. So this is the McGurk effect. In this video, you'll see two of me speaking, but there's always ever just one sound, ba, with B as in boy. But the right lip movement corresponds to va, with V as in Victor. So when I play the video, cover the right face with your hand and look at just the left one, and then do the opposite. So when you look at the right lip movement, the consonant may seem to change from a B as in boy to a V or a W, because your vision interferes with your sense of audition. So this is just one example of how complex our senses are. So now let me play the video. Ba, ba, ba. 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 So this concludes the first introductory episode of this podcast series. One quick note, since I'll be referring to high-end audio often, it being the title of the podcast and all, I'll sometimes refer to it with its abbreviation HEA or the acronym HEA. So this is similar to high fidelity audio being referred to as hi-fi. Also, if you look at the titles of our workshops at the Audio Engineering Society convention, you'll notice that besides hi-fi and HEA, we refer to other terms like high-resolution audio, high-performance audio, etc. So what exactly all these different terms mean and whether they have anything in common will be something that will be discussed in a future episode. So until then, I wish you all the best and see you in the next episode, Lesson 2. So long.